Yo, what's up everyone? This is Ignatius. This is my 10th video in PoE2 and I am really excited to bring you this one. As a quick teaser, I have a few questions for you. Have you ever just wanted to really watch Netflix shows but still farm divines? Are you by chance a homeschool dad with 3 little kids begging for you with their every need, stealing your attention, but you still want to farm divines? Are you maybe a software developer at home working your job tooth and nail, minute to minute, even overtime, but still want to farm divines? Maybe you just like to, I don't know, smoke a lot and not pay much attention this late in the season, but still farm divines? Maybe even you're like a super Chad and you actually want to slam PoE 1, but still farm divines in PoE 2. Well, if your answer is yes to any of these things, or if you're just so late in the season you don't actually want to actively grind the content but still farm the currency to fuel your crazy tinfoil hat build ideas, this build is for you. Today I bring to you the full AFK, absolutely immortal Wind Dancer, Envenom, Corrosion, Bursting Plague, Herald of Plague, Herald of Blood, Blood Boils, Corrupting Blood, Ritualist, Triple Recoup, Immortal, AFK, Sim Farmer. Woo! I am not kidding you. This build cannot die in Sim 4. I have done over 100 runs without a single death or even close to it. I am not kidding you. This combination of skills for deleting the minions clears Sim 4 in a very reasonable amount of time. And I am not kidding you, you can totally multitask as much as you want and not pay much attention to the game and farm the laziest divines of your life. Isn't this great? Let's get into it. And of course, I am going to be AFK farming Sim 4 for all segments of this guide. First thing I want to say is that even though this is the ultimate potato build where you literally just sit there and do no actions and farm, the build itself, the character itself, is actually quite complex and intricate, and for that reason I spent more time on the corresponding written guide than I ever have before, and this is all posted for you on Mobalytics. I document really every careful interaction of the build. I've gone through and pasted in every single item that I have for my build from PoE2 directly into Mobalytics. I've even provided for you an explanation of each item, what you're looking for, any specific details, and a filtered trade link to the PoE2 trade site so that you can more quickly find the version of the item that you need yourself. I even posted what the cost of that item was at the time of the writing of the guide so that you can kind of compare what things look like. And I've provided some alternative items if things aren't there for you. And lastly, I've gone into the skill gems and whittled the build down, if you will, to exactly the gems that you need and the supports that you need, nothing more and nothing less. So if you're going to mirror this build and do this project of AFK Sim 4 farming, definitely bookmark this written guide. It'll help you a lot. Okay. First thing we're going to talk about are the 2 main mechanics. Essentially, how is this build invincible and how does this build kill stuff? So, how is it invincible? It really comes down to like 4 key items and building things around those items. The first and most important one is Defiance of Destiny, and this line at the end, recover missing life before being hit by an enemy. And even though this wave 1 doesn't do a lot of damage, you can kind of see my missing life getting bounced back right before I get hit by every single minion. The next really important thing in this sort of recovery mechanic is that this armor, Sacrosanctum, and the last line of this armor says damage taken recouped as life is also recouped as energy shield. So we basically get to double dip. Like, it's not one or the other, it's not one at the cost of the other, it's just both, and I definitely think this will get nerfed. It's extremely powerful. This armor also has like good stats, pretty good like base armor energy shield kind of. It's got spirit, it even has 10% damage taken recouped, so extremely powerful here. Another is Atziri's Disdain. This helmet already did get nerfed, but it's still extremely strong. And basically, when you stack life, you get that max life as extra max energy shield. So this enables us to just have an incredible amount of life and energy shield for free. Again, we're double dipping. And then the last thing I'll say is that on Ritualist, the Unfurled Finger and Mystic Attunement allow us to stack tons of strength, life, mana, evasion, which we convert to armor, and resists, all of which help with the tankiness and sort of the recoup ability. Okay, then how do we kill things? So in other iterations of this, Invincible AFK Sim 4 farmer, one of the things I really kind of was thought the builds were lacking was the ability to kill things a little bit more quickly and a little bit more consistently, because even though you're AFK sim farming, it is helpful if like your time between intervals of sim rounds is maybe like, I don't know, less than a minute or at least less than 2 minutes. I just think that's, really helpful. It shouldn't be like 10 minutes per round or something like that, which it was with some of them. It was also important to me that the build was completely invincible, like no chance of dying ever. And I can say very confidently that with this setup I have, I cannot die in any version of sim mods. So how do we improve the damage without sacrificing that key element where we can never die? So I ran the default blood boil for Ritualist, which basically applies corrupted blood to monsters that hit you. And this is the main way that range monsters still die. But then I added some spicy poison armor bursting things along with 2 of the Heralds to help kill some of the bosses a little faster and some of the rare monsters a little faster. So this Wind Dancer tech, which we will cover later, is really key, especially this Bursting Plague and this Corrosion. And then Herald of Blood is doing a tiny bit and Herald of Plague is doing a tiny bit. And the 4 of them combined do everything that we need to do to clear things really quickly, except for some very niche scenarios. So we'll cover all of those as we get further into the build. Okay, part 3. I want to go through the items in a very comprehensive way, and I may pause my AFK sim here as I'm covering all of these items, but I want to say a little bit about each one and be super thorough so that you understand the ins and outs of each. So I mentioned Defiance of Destiny, recover missing life before being hit. When you buy this amulet, the max roll is a 20. I wanted to go a little bit higher. Now that I'm pretty decked out, I probably don't need a 24. I wonder if I could even get away with like a 10%, like a worst roll possible. I think there's potential for that, because the only time this bar ever even gets low is when I get this weird curse applied to me where I can't recover above 50%, and even then it's totally fine. But yeah, you have to have Defiance of Destiny. And then my favorite anoint here is Pliable Flesh. This gives us recoup as life and speed of recoup effects, which is really, really cool. And the other thing about Pliable Flesh is that as much as our skill tree bounces around everywhere, this is still sitting over here in no man's land, and we would never path to it without incredible sacrifice to our passive points. So yeah, Pliable Flesh is really solid. There's probably some other pretty good anoints, but I think that one is definitely my favorite. Item number 2 is going to be Sacrosanctum, which we talked about. I think the main thing you want to make sure you have here is 3 sockets into the armor. This lets you put 3 soul cores of Jaquani in, and those soul cores are going to increase your maximum life, which, because of Atziri's Disdain, is going to increase your maximum mana. And then as far as rolls, I don't really think anything else is that important. I did take the max chaos roll and these stats because both of these stats are useful because of the skills that you use and strength stacking. But yeah, I think that's kind of important. You'll notice that I'm not even chaos res capped, so I don't know how low some of these defensive stats could get with me still being invincible. That's maybe something I want to test later on just for fun. But yeah, as far as the other mods on the armor, I don't think you really need that much more. Just that basic 10% recoup, and then the 3 sockets are probably going to be important. Item number 3 is Atziri's Disdain, and I think for this one, again, you want to make sure you have 2 sockets as the corrupted roll, and then you want to make sure you have 15% of life as extra max energy shield, which is the max roll on this. In this helmet, I'm actually not socketing Soul Core Jaquani. I'm using one of the new Soul Cores, Estezunti's Soul Core of Convalescence, and this gives us more recoup right on the Soul Core. I think I also have this in my... Where else is this thing? Oh, interesting. I have the same Soul Core in Boots, but down here it does 10% increased speed of recoup effects. So yeah, and then everything else is Jaquani, and the weapon is Robust Runes. Item number 4 is fairly important, though I wonder if it is replaceable now that I have so many other mechanics that are killing minions. But this shield, called Bloodbarrier, kind of layers on the blood boil effect just as like a secondary iteration of it. So it says inflicts corrupted blood for 5 seconds on block, dealing 50% of your max life as fizz damage per second. So I think that's probably a more powerful corrupted blood than the blood boil. I'm not totally sure, but you will notice our block chance is at 75%. Big piece that this is supported by is this glancing blows. So where our block chance is double, but we're still taking 50% of damage, which is totally fine. Once again, you want 2 sockets in the Bloodbarrier, and you probably want like a 30% or close to it base block chance roll, so that way you can hit the 75% block chance. And yeah, I will be interested if anyone has experience testing this build to the point where you don't even run that shield and things still die. Let me know if so. Item number 5 is Ingenuity. I think you could run some other belts, but this just helps so much with more bonuses to all the defensive stats from the rings, which is really great. Make sure that when you buy this, a lot of people don't realize this, but make sure that this line here is reduced charm charges used. Otherwise, your charges, which all use 30 out of 40, will end up using more than that, and it's a pretty big debuff. And then increased charges gain is pretty good. You probably want 3 charm slots, but do take note that in the Ritualist Ascendancy, we kind of have some points where we don't really care what's happening. And so if you take Intricate Sigils and get the +1 charm slot, you can actually take a +2 charm slot Ingenuity, which is kind of interesting to see. That is probably making it a lot cheaper with the other mods being really strong. So that could be super valuable depending on your case in the search for this belt. And then item number 6, this will be the last unique item that we'll go over. And again, this is another one. I hate to say that like these are all optional, but you can see how ridiculously tanky this build is. And this Hammer of Faith is optional. I do like it a lot. It's giving us random shrine buffs throughout the Simulacrum. You'll notice that when I have the regen shrine buff, it actually just went away. Oh no, there it is, replenishing life. The recovery per second modifiers, which for some reason it's not like showing them live. Oh, there we go. Recovery per second modifiers, they just activated. These will go up to like 50 and 60,000 at certain times when this is up. There's also like the Seeking Shrine, which is going to give us more loot and just some other cool things. The Speed Shrine as you're transitioning between zones is fun sometimes. So yeah, you don't really need a weapon that does damage. All of our damage is poison, and we're not going to be scaling it that much. The base fizz of this weapon is decent. Make sure you get it at 3 sockets and socket them with strength runes for the strength stacking. Okay, that's the 6 easiest items because those are all the uniques, fairly straightforward searches, and fairly abundant in terms of how many listings there are on the trade market. Now we get into the somewhat harder stuff. First thing we'll talk about is the rings, and mainly we're just going to talk about the properties. So in your filter for rings, you must have max life, max mana, and strength. To some extent, we are taking jewels that give us damage taken from mana before life. So anytime that you're increasing max mana, you're adding more of a defensive layer to your build. Max life is self-explanatory. Strength should be self-explanatory. Then you need to balance resistances. Again, I'm over-capped on some of them. My chaos is not capped. I think I could be kind of like all over the place in terms of resistances, and it would be just fine. But you'll want to manipulate those and mix and match those as best you can. Admittedly, I think I ended up buying like 7 different rings for this build because as I was mixing and matching different pieces, I needed to balance resists in other ways. The uniques are like almost all the other main slots where you would get resist, and some of them do give you some resist, even the weapon. But yeah, you're going to need some help from rings on that. You'll notice in some builds that the rings have evasion. I initially had that, and that's because our evasion, because of iron reflexes, is converting to armor. Overall, like in Sims, my armor was broken like, I don't know, maybe like half the time. It was broken all the time, and I wasn't dying. So I decided armor's not important. I'm dropping evasion from rings. So I do think the evasion on rings that you may see in some Invincible builds might be pointless, and you can maybe ignore it. The other thing is rarity. Since you're infinite farming, you may want rarity on these rings. I get asked this all the time. How much rarity do you want? If you don't know, around 100 is very important, and it does impact Simulacrum drops. I'm totally sure of it. and we're at 103% here, which feels pretty good. You've been seeing lots of good loot drop just while I've been farming right here in this zone. Look, we're already on wave 12. Incredible. So yeah, that's the rings. What's next here? The rare gloves. So the gloves and boots are a little awkward, and honestly, they are going to be scarce on the trade market because people don't really collect gloves and boots with these mods thinking that they are going to sell. So you may have to like kind of craft your own. At the time that I wrote this guide, there were only 4 with these mods, and right now there's only 1. You may be able to lower the mods and find some. But yeah, on gloves, basically you want an armor ES base or a plain ES base, max life, strength, and resist wherever you can get them. The boots, kind of the same thing, but we can do life, mana, and strength, and resist. And of course, you don't really care about movement speed because you're just sitting here, and we leap slam for movement between the rounds. So yeah, gloves and boots, about the same thing, same base, same like general properties that you're looking for. And in both, you may find that on the trade market, they're somewhat scarce. It looks like there's quite a few decent boots out there right now. And you may have to mix and match like what you're looking for when you go out and search them yourself. Keep in mind that one of the reasons some of the searches might be limited is because the resists in my filter are targeted. So I think in this one, for instance, I just have fire and lightning, and I've got them at these quantities. And that's just to match what I have going on in the Mobalytics write-up so that you're actually res capped. But come into these filters and manipulate them for what you actually need. You might be able to find rings with other types of properties, so that way your boots and gloves don't have to have them. Okay, let's move on to the jewels. And I'm sorry, the sapphire jewels is going to be like the saddest part of what you have to search for this build. And once again, the build is so tanky, I'm not so certain like how important they are in terms of having like really good value of the properties, but we'll talk about that. The simple one is this From Nothing jewel with Necromantic Talisman. This allows us to come up here into the tree in a place where we actually are spending a lot of time, but not invest lots of points just to get these 4 nodes, especially the Glazed Flesh, which gives us Recoup in all 3 versions, Life, Mana, and ES. And then this Adverse Growth, which gives us 20% Recoup as mana. Those are both really, really powerful. There's also some smaller mana recoups here, which is so important. So yeah, get that From Nothing jewel. It's really, really cheap. And now on to the Sapphire jewels. The ideal properties are these 3. Max energy shield as much as you can get. Recoup is life as much as you can get. And damage taken from mana before life as much as you can get, which ends up being just flat DR, and you have mana recoup. So really, really powerful. At the time that I wrote, there were 12 of these, starting at 1 divine each. Let's take a live look. We have 6 starting at 1 divine each, and I have no numerical values on these properties. So let me talk about that for a second. One thing you can do if these are scarce or if the ones you see aren't good, this one's insane, someone should buy that one. But let's take a crappy one. This one's like a little bit subpar. It's 17, 2, and 2. Ideally, we'd get like these 2, 3, and 4. And the max energy shield is maybe the least important of the 3 properties. So, and let's say it was even crappier. Let's say it was like a 10, 2, and 2 for 5 chaos. Well, go ahead and buy that and slam it with a couple of divines. A lot of new players don't realize what the divine norm actually does. It will re-roll the value within the range. So if it says 10% ES, you could re-roll it up to like the 18, 19, 20. This one has a 50-50 for a 2 or 3, and this one has only 3 potentials to roll. So buying cheap ones and rolling them could be really good. And then if there aren't even cheap ones, you can just slot one of these properties off. This is the flat DR. This is more recoup. But you could buy one with 2 of them and maybe find another tanky property. And at that point, they are dirt cheap. Like, you'll have a hard time even getting people to respond. Let me show what all of mine are, just kind of like as a, as a fact check. So this one is a 20, 2, and 3. 20 ES, 2 recoup, 3 mana before. That might be my best one. And all of these I bought as low rolls, and I divined them myself. And I saved like 50 div doing that. This one's a 19, 3, and 2. Pretty solid. This one here is a 20, 2, and 4. Almost perfect there. This one here is different. And I did, I did want to go find a jewel that has corrupted blood cannot be inflicted upon you, and then have it have at least like one of the modifiers I want. So this one's a Corrupted Blood immune with 19 max ES. It's also 1% max life on kill. Probably doesn't really do much, but it's there. And then this one here is a 19, 3, and 2 with no fourth property. So yeah, that's the jewels. Again, I'm sorry. The jewels are going to be the hardest thing to find. The good thing is you could slot them in at 2 properties, see if you're invincible. If you've got some good items in the other slot, you may very well be totally invincible without 3 property jewels all the way across the board. And if you aren't, then you know where the improvements can be made. I talked about the soul cores and what to socket into each item a little bit. Lastly, I'll talk about the charms. So the first 2 are required. This one, Forsaken Bangle, this helps you with the chaos blobs, whatever they're called, that come in Simulacrum. And basically what this does is when you take chaos damage, for the next 5 seconds, 50% of the damage that you prevent gets recouped. So if you take a big hit, but you prevent a large percentage of it, well, now that gets recouped as life and mana during the effect. So this will essentially make you immune to those terrible chaos things that happen in Simulacrum. Second required one, probably required, is the Black Cat. This one removes shock from you, and you get shocked constantly in Simulacrum. If you don't know, shock makes you take more damage overall. It's basically a more damage modifier for the minions. So it makes your defenses go down significantly without really displaying it. Lastly, you'll see other Invincible farming builds have, what's it called? Sanguis Heroum. This is the one that makes you bleed immune and creates consecrated ground when you take bleeding. I ended up dropping this because I didn't need it, and I slotted in Byra's Anguish, and this is giving us more clear. It's not very consistent. Like, you don't get ignited every single round in Simulacrum, but you do get ignited, I would say, like half of the rounds. And when you do, this then deals fire damage equal to 500% of your maximum life. So, yeah, a lot of clear comes from the Byra's Anguish, and it speeds things up, makes things more consistent. So I would recommend that, like, start with the Sanguis Heroum, and then take Byra's Anguish if you're finding that you're totally fine in terms of bleed, and you don't actually need that extra defensive layer. I think that about covers it for the items. Again, in the Mobalytics, I've got links for all the trades. And again, if you don't know, when you open up a trade link, like let's go with these, what's one I haven't opened yet? Let's go with this rare ring trade. Over here in the filters, I've got lots of things specified, and you have to come in and, update things, manipulate things, maybe subtract a modifier, like things are expensive, drop the rarity, see what happens. These are all really cheap, add max mana, whatever it is. I need a different resist, add that in. I try to set it up so that it, is a template, and then manipulate and research. Just wanted to mention that. Okay. Next thing we're going to cover is skill gems, and this won't take very long because there aren't very many, but I do want to talk about the ones I'm not sure about and the ones that are like really heavy lifters. So first of all, the build only requires only 90 spirit, which you get from the campaign. So you technically need no spirit from items. Now, why do I only have 92 spirit? Well, if you look at the Ritualist Ascendancy, as you come over here to Unfurled Finger and Mystic Attunement, you have to take one downside. We use mana as damage reduction and for mana recoup, so I don't like that one. And if I took away 20 res from every category, I would no longer be fire res capped, though it would be pretty close. I could probably solve that if I needed more spirit really badly. So I have 25% reduced spirit. If for some reason you're trying something out and you want to actually have less of a spirit requirement, turn off Herald of Blood. That's the least important one. I'm actually not sure how effective it is in general. I cannot believe how quickly wave 15 just finished over here, by the way. But yeah, Herald of Blood is probably the least important, so that would be the one to turn off. Okay, let me go over the links. We'll go from most important to least important. The most important linkage that's going on here is Wind Dancer. So you want a level 20 Wind Dancer, which is going to require 205 dexterity. I'd recommend getting dex on one of your rings to help with that requirement. It's kind of a niche requirement. It's going to hurt your strength on the tree a bit. But yeah, 205 dex so that you can slot in Wind Dancer. Now, Wind Dancer has this Gale Force effect when you get hit, and it does more damage with more AoE per stage of Gale Force. Because you have high block chance, you don't get hit by every attack, so those stages do actually build up. And then what we do with Wind Force when it hits is we try to poison the enemy, and then we break the enemy's armor with the poison, which triggers both this armor explosion, and it also triggers this bursting plague in a large AoE. So Envenom, 50% of hits will poison. Corrosion, poison applied, will start breaking the armor at 80% of poison damage. Even in low DPS, like this is only 2,000 damage per use, every minion's armor is getting broken, except for the ranged minions because they're outside of the range of Wind Dancer. And then Bursting Plague, poison from your skills, also add 100% of damage per second to enemy as plague, and then it bursts to enemies around them when the enemy dies. And then, of course, Mag Effect makes that burst go farther. Okay, so that's the most important linkage. I think if I turn this off, and this off, and this off, I'll still just do fine with Wind Dancer and then this Bloodbarrier, which will apply the Corrupted Blood to ranged minions. And I'll actually try that out here in the next sim that I do. Okay, moving on to the next skill gem linkage. So again, Wind Dancer most important. I would say next most important is probably the Herald of Plague. So while active, killing a poisoned enemy spreads its poison to other nearby enemies and also has a chance to hinder them. Of course, since almost all of our damage is coming from the Wind Dancer and Venom linkage, I think Herald of Plague is doing some decent work. It's really hard to tell. The Wind Dancer itself just does so much work that it's hard to tell what these actually do. But yeah, it stands to reason that the Herald of Plague is doing a decent amount of work. And then we also have Herald of Blood. You'll notice these life bars. Look how fast they're dying with just Wind Dancer. You'll notice the life bars aren't showing the bleed value, but if you turn Herald of Blood on, they will show the bleed value. See that there? And again, these ranged minions, they are taking bleed from this Bloodbarrier. I have Blood Boil off right now. But yeah, basically the Herald of Plague is doing two things. When it triggers, I've got Calling Strike with Reach on it, so it technically could be calling other minions. Not totally sure if that's really working, but again, stands to reason that it should. And then, yeah, it should be destroying nearby corpses for like aggravated bleeding explosion. I'm not totally sure again if it's doing much. But yeah, that would, I guess, be the next most important. Starting to feel kind of silly here saying that not everything is really needed, but yeah, the Wind Dancer is so powerful it maybe isn't needed. Okay, what's left? Blood Boil, this is on our Ascendancy. Again, it's optional. I think we're getting the same effect from this Iron Buckler, but this is like just a passive one, so it just works constantly. As far as the support gems in here, I don't know what Brutality is doing, but I see it on tons of builds, so I just have it. And then Swift Affliction makes the damage happen faster. Fizz Mastery gives us another level of it. Acrimony causes the minions who take the damage from this skill to have less life regeneration rate, which is actually pretty important. There are some minions in the Simulacrum that have the regen modifier, so reducing that is helpful. And then Persistence so that it lasts longer. So yeah, that's the Blood Boil linkage. The last two things are optional, but because you have no movement speed, Leap Slam is kind of nice for moving between zones. You just kind of like hold down right click, and you can like, obviously I'm moving slow because these monsters are hitting me, but you can move between zones pretty nicely with that. We've got Martial Tempo, Holy Descent, and Suffuse in here, just because. Again, stands to reason. Lastly, Seismic Cry. With Corrupting Cry in here, and Ingenuity and Life Tap, there are situations, especially with Kosis, who can be kind of a pain in the butt to kill, where you may want to come in and if, I don't know, you're trying to finish a round quickly because you have a work meeting coming up, or one of your kids is screaming at you, or, I don't know, mom needs you to sign off to the computer, then you could, hop in here and actually do something if you want to. And if you want to, you can Seismic Cry these minions, and that's applying the Corrupted Blood to the minions in an active fashion. there is maybe an argument that this actually slows down the clear because the Wind Dancer hits them so fast. But again, you'll see with Kosis, he's tricky sometimes. He's a turd sometimes. So that can be there to, I don't know, come in the clutch. Those are the gems. I do think it'd be cool to try. You could just run Wind Dancer and nothing else. And as long as you have this shield to kill the ranged minions, that would kill everything, which is absurd. But this whole building concept is absurd, so that's kind of fun. Okay, last major thing we have to go over is the passive tree. And I guess I won't say a whole lot. Like, if you follow the Mobalytics guide and the passive tree I have there, it's very straightforward and it works great, and there's not a whole lot of room for improvement. It's also, like, you know, very direct. There's no weapon sets. There's no, like, you know, you could go here if you want more of this, or go here if you want more of this. You know, there's no, like, min-maxing your crit cap and your crit damage bonus. It's just really straightforward. I did see some small improvements that I made from other Immortal AFK builds in just the efficiency of using points for value, especially with some of the shield nodes. The other thing I'll say is that I'm slotting in this brute strength with these extra strength nodes. These have a reduced max mana like drawback to them. So if you are like dying or getting close to dying, that's something that's hurting our mana pool a lot. And because we're running mana recoup, and hopefully with the jewels, we're running damage taken before mana, you could consider slotting these back. The reason I do this is because this 1% damage per 15 strength, and we have 600 strength. So this is the only thing that is giving us a little bit more damage with the Wind Dancer. So I don't know. Maybe it's useful. Maybe it's not. I haven't tried without it. It just seemed like a nice way to use those extra 4 points. My Ritualist is only level 94. She could be level 90, and then you could drop these 4, and you'd be fine. I guess because armor doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot, you could even drop a 5th, and you could be level 89 and still run this build. The other 89 points, I think, are essential, and you shouldn't be able to get away with slotting back anything else, because each path takes you to a, like a notable node that is really important. And so as soon as you start taking away points, you're not able to make it out to these notables, and each one is, a huge defensive layer for your character. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the passive tree. I guess also with the ascendancy, I've kind of mentioned it here and there, but you got to pick your drawback to get out to the ring and the boost. We turned Blood Boil off and everything died, so optional. This is giving us a charm slot, but I've got a Ingenuity with 3 charm slots, so optional. This one here, Wildwood Persistence, is another defensive layer, so increased life recovery rate per 5% missing unreserved life. I suppose if you're dying, you could throw that on, and that might keep you from dying, so that's worth mentioning. I wouldn't mess with these at all. These are like the weird headhunter effect crap. And then this one's actually pretty good. Like, if you're struggling with dying, the charms are a huge defensive layer. You could take off Blood Boil. You can come over here. I've seen builds that take off Mystic Attunement. I think it's super powerful. I wouldn't do that. My choice would be to remove Blood Boil and come over here and get this. It's maybe a more optimized build overall, but the Blood Boil does add an additional layer for killing the ranged monsters, and also just like a passive constant layer of bleed around the minions, so is maybe speeding up the speed of the clear a little bit. I'm not totally sure, and it's kind of hard to science that, but yeah, that's my overview of the passive tree. I just took a break between sessions of recording this video, and it was so wonderful. I went to the bathroom, I made some food, I hung out with my family for a bit, and in between that, I did literally 24 waves of Sim 4. It's so awesome. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is what I call the Kosis Problem, and I tried to recreate this live because I don't know, it's helpful to like talk about it live, and here comes Kosis right now, and it's not going to happen. He's probably going to die really fast. Oh, something in here has an invincibility shrine, so that's why they recharged. But yeah, I think they're probably still going to get crushed. Anyway, the Kosis Problem. I do want to like document this really well. I did capture it in like a long recording I was doing one time. Oh, maybe it's happening here. Not quite. Okay, let me go to my video. What is the Kosis Problem? So every once in a while, and it is not frequent, but every once in a while as you're fighting a wave, Kosis will come in. You see him come in here, and he stays out here. He doesn't come into the pool, and he's casting spells. So basically, he's not getting the damage from the blood boils because he's too far away, I'm pretty sure. He's probably not getting the damage from the shield because he's shooting spells, and then he's not getting any of our AoE damage effects. He's outside of the range of Wind Dancer, and he's not getting any of the explosion or the bursting plague. I think there he took 2 from the shield, but now he's going into this spell with energy shield and he's immune. So if you're AFK, like right now I'm like identifying items, and you're not there, then he doesn't come close to you. Now the net result of this problem is that it takes a long time to kill him, like usually on the order of like 2 minutes, sometimes on the order of like 5 minutes, and that's as bad as it gets. It's not that he doesn't die. Eventually he walks up to you, he whacks you with his sword, and he dies. But when there's nothing else around, his combat behavior is to whack a couple times and then do this spell thing. So you can see he's taking damage from the whacking, everything's going great, but he's going to do his spell thing here in a little bit, and check this out. Bramp, he stops attacking, the corrupted blood goes away, he regains a ton of energy shield, and now he resets. So it'll go through these different phases of kind of that iteration, and it will take a while to kill Kosis. If anybody has like a nice solution for that is a part of the build being AFK, one thing I've thought about is like maybe incorporating some type of beast or something and adding more spirit and subtracting maybe some of our heralds that we don't need. Haven't experimented with that very much because I don't know much about capturing beasts, but yeah, if somebody in the community has a nice suggestion for deleting Kosis AFK when he's doing that silly stuff, that would be really awesome. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, I'm Ignatius. I've been building videos for PoE 2 for not very long, and if you found me, I really appreciate your time and attention. If I've said anything wrong in this guide, or if there's anything that could be improved, please call me out in the comments. I make a note to respond to every single YouTube comment that I get on videos, and I've done that for 9 videos straight so far, and I'm hoping to keep it up. If you do like my content, of course, remember to subscribe and support me in whatever ways you like. And most importantly, if you have Discord, please come over and join our Discord server. I have a link in the description. I carefully manage and curate this server to try to avoid it from becoming just another large content creator Discord server where you turn the notifications off and walk away. I actually regularly prune our members for inactivity because I want this to be an active space where people who love this game are collaborating regularly. I'm in here every single day talking to people, answering questions, iterating on builds. There's also a channel here with all of my POBs and filters and resources and things. So if you have Discord and you haven't joined our Discord, please come on by and say hi. We'd love to have you. And again, if you have any questions on this build or have any comments for improvement, please let me know. Thanks, everyone.